Hello, everybody. Grant Hunter here with another Product Growth Leaders topic of the week. Yeah, Steve, last topic we talked about product strategy being hard, and this week we decided to take it sort of more macro. Right? Let's get outside of just product strategy and talk about the hard things about product management. When I'm doing my stuff on the Twitters and people complain, everybody complains about how hard product management is, and so what a great topic to have this week. What do you think?
Sure, why not?
All right. So what we did, we got a great panel with us today. Cory Bryan, Calvin Marshall, Jason Vincelette, Joy McCaffrey, and we're going to talk about hard things about product management. On Monday, I put this question in the community. What is the hardest thing about product management? And Jason, channeling his inner joy, was very brief and said, learning how to say no. That's it. That's the hardest thing.
The root of all evils with product managers.
The inability to say no.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Learning how to say no. There's a lot effectively, those kind of things.
My kids learned how to say no when they were like 5 years old. Really good. No. Maybe it's maybe kindergartners would make good product managers. That's the hardest thing.
Yeah. You got to challenge your inner kindergartner.
And yet, extending that metaphor, what is the parent going to follow up after a kid says no 3 times? They say, shut the hell up. You're a kid. I'm going to tell you to do it my way, which is very much like product management dealing with senior leadership.
Yeah. There is true. I have in my head for like years now been wanting to write everything I needed to know about product management I knew in kindergarten. Why? No. I don't know where we'll get there. We actually had some interesting comments that came in. Graham Rose said, you can't do all the right stuff, talk to the right people, and all at the right time. And you could do all that, and there's still not a guarantee it would succeed, right? There's such a uncertainty, even if you do the stuff right, that's tough to do. Robert Goldberg said organizational culture eats everything. So we had some good conversations going there. Joy, did you answer the question?
No, I didn't. I was going to say something snarky like managing products. I'll leave it at that.
Everything.
Yeah, no, I would just say, I think some other people answered this. It's just knowing what product management is. Depending on the size of the company, it means one thing. Depending on the product that you're managing, it means one thing. Depending on the company that you're working at, it means one thing. So it's just difficult to define.
And actually, that is the exact when we get to the poll, that is the exact reasoning behind one of the poll answers, because I felt that was exactly the right thing. Cory, you said finding a place where the skills and value you bring are valued. I guess that was supposed to be
valued. Yes, that was a spelling thing.
Talk to me about that.
I mean, to reference what Jason said, I don't find it a problem saying no. I love saying no to a lot of things. I like saying yes to a lot of things too. The problem is having no be heard, understood, and accepted. Because if there's something that we're supposed to be doing, but we're not doing it, or if there's a latest fire, or trying to understand why somebody wants something, if we say no and it's immediately overridden or gone around or something else, then they don't really value why that no existed in the first place. Because sometimes we're holding a mirror up to the organization and saying, look, this is what you said you wanted. Do you want it still? And they go, well, no, because we want this other thing. Okay.
No, they say, yes, we want that and the other thing.
We want that and the other thing. So yeah,
Right.
So I take a lot from that Marty Kagan article of the best versus the rest, and his books Inspired and Empowered, if you've read those. But it's very few organizations that understand how or very few organizations that run product well. There's a lot of organizations, and this is most of the ones I've worked in, that product management was a thing that was done in service of some other thing, that it wasn't understood well, it wasn't valued, it wasn't seen as necessary, it was seen as a thing to help us get work out faster.
Yeah, and I think many answers came in with that. Some people talking about, people thinking product management is project management. And back to Joy's point, it's a lot of it's the misunderstanding or clarity in what the role of product management is.
But I want to jump on, extend Cory's comment to a yes and here. I had a conversation a few years ago with Rich Mironov, who I just love his writing. And he said, one of the big problems for product managers is they think no is the end of the conversation. And for a salesperson, no is the beginning of a negotiation, right? So as soon as we say no to the as soon as the product manager says no to the sales guy, product manager's like, my work here is done. But the sales guy's like, oh no, my work has just begun. Now I'm going to go to my boss and complain about product management. He's going to go to your boss and complain about product management. Both of us are all going to go to the president and complain about product management. And then sure enough, as Cory points out, next thing you know, it's like, you need to be supportive of sales, do whatever it is they asked for. So this escalation problem is something that seems to be systemic, I guess. Anyway, Cory, you rose your hand to agree with me violently.
I did, because it's something that it's a negotiation tactic from that Chris Voss book. If anybody's read that, negotiating like your life depends on it. One of the tricks he has is get people to say no quickly, so that you understand, you let them think they're in charge, or you let them understand that they have the ability to say no. I love doing that when I'm negotiating with people. And sometimes it's throwing something out there that's completely wrong and getting them to say no to it. It's like, great, now we're saying no to each other. Now we can communicate. Now we can dialogue. Now we can have an argument about what to do.
Yes. The conversation has just begun.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was my point. I didn't say that the hardest part was saying no, was like what you were saying, Cory. It's learning how to say no, and some of those tricks and getting people to comprehend. So there's a lot in the brevity of that statement. I should say learn how to effectively say no, probably, versus just saying no, because I agree with you, saying no's easy, dealing with the consequences or getting people to understand it, those kind of things. Because I think as product managers, we want happy stakeholders and happy customers. And a lot of times our customers are internal. Like, we want our people to be happy. That's in our nature, and satisfied. And so when you have to say no all the time, it can be challenging. You're doing it for the right reasons, so you got to learn how to say no, so they're on your side, like you said, with negotiation, Cory. And I think there's an art to that, because if you just take junior product managers and you say, oh yeah, you just say no, and they go no, then it's going to come right back to you as an escalation anyway. But if they say no efficiently and learn how to communicate that, so you get that agreement, like you were saying, and there's a reason why, and all of that, and quality and things like that, then it doesn't come to you, and then you've raised a nice product manager. So I think there's just an art there that all of your studies in those books that you referenced, probably very valuable there.
And that a lot of what we've just been talking about gets back to what Robert Goldberg said. It's about the culture, right? If the culture is such that the salesperson can escalate, and then all of a sudden it comes back down from the CEO or whatever, that the hard thing about product management is being product management in a culture like that, right? Where you're not valued, where people don't understand the role, and those types of things. Holly Lewis had said a lot of people are afraid to say no because of those cultures, and that's a terrible place to be. Calvin, you quoted some wise sage, some pioneer.
Yeah, I did. I've used that a lot, and there's a blog that was written about it that I have someplace, and I've referenced. I have it on a sheet of paper that you can't see. That is just a reminder.
Is that note just for our call, or is that what you always have on your desk?
Well, you can kind of see the tattered tape on the edge here.
Yeah.
It's been here for a while.
The 4 knowledge competences is what you were talking about, right?
Yeah, and so I mean, I wrestled with this question, and I thought, kind of at a macro level, it's hard to have all of these skill sets and balance them. And when you have so many product managers working on more technology driven products, such that they bring more of a technology sense to product management than all the business aspects, and which a lot of times becomes the strategic part, is missing. And so it's that balance between the strategy and the tactics. And I find that for those product managers that are highly technical, they're getting bogged down in the bits and bytes and not looking at the macro level of, what problem we're trying to solve for a customer. So
Yeah.
that's my take.
Well, some wise guy wrote that, I believe, Steve Johnson. But that's that part of it's I'll take it, and I'm going to do a transition, so hopefully I can stick the landing. Part of it is this purple squirrel concept, right? We say we're recruiting for people who have all these different competencies, which is hard to have. We talk in our product strategy about the hedgehog and the fox. It's hard to be both the hedgehog and the fox, right? And I think one of the hard things, to your point, is we have all these expectations, these different thinking mindset sets that we have to have, and it's hard to do all of them at the same time. And part of, and this is me, I'm going to not stick the landing because I was trying to pivot sort of recruiting a purple squirrel into what May Wong had said, where Jason channeled his inner Joy, May channeled her inner Jason and said the career progression. Most of us stumble into product management, and many of us start off as product owner of some sort. As we refine our craft and get our own products, we learn through failures, and eventually someone considers us senior. There is no path, right? There is no, where do you hire somebody? Where do they go? And so many calls this week, and I think Steve was one saying it's like a salesperson gets hired and they put them through training, right? An accountant goes through training. Most professions have training when they onboard somebody in those types of things. And so career progression becomes a tough thing to say. Calvin.
So I'm going to guess that most of us on this call have had 15 or more years of experience around product management. Where was product owner 15 years ago? What does that mean? How do we stumble into product owner?
It was a baby. It was a baby. Maybe was a toddler. What 2001, Steve?
Well, actually, I'm fairly sure that product owner is around that time. I mean, yeah, in 2001, a bunch of people who had created development methodologies got together in Park City, Utah, and wrote together the Agile Manifesto. That was an umbrella term over a number of methodologies, including Scrum and Crystal and XP. And one of those methods, Scrum, invented the product owner role. And I'm thinking now this is probably the late 90s, actually, when Scrum was created. And they intentionally chose not to use product manager as a title because the title was so ill-defined. And so they said, screw that noise. We're going to create our own title called product owner. And it suffers from two things. One is nobody really knew what it was, but what they described in Scrum was in fact a product manager role that we don't see as many product managers in fact doing. And it's the business role, the business representative and the market representative on the Scrum team. But the second thing that I think is really germane is this was what a developer thought product managers did, or this was what a developer needed from product management. And I remember in my first product management job, I went in and I said, hey, I'm here with my requirements. And they went, well, hang on. First, tell us what's going on in the business. Tell us about recent sales. Tell us about the customer persona. Tell us what the problems are that you're trying to solve. And they were asking me to be the business representative, which is how I think Grant and I hope some of you think of the product management job. But again, product owner was defined by developers of what developers needed from product management. And I saw a speaker a few years after talking about product owner. I think he was talking about product owner. I think it doesn't really matter. And somebody said, but if the product owner has to be available 24/7 to the dev team, when is the product owner going to do the rest of product management? And the speaker was befuddled. He's like, what else is there? I mean, supporting the dev team is what product managers do. And the person went, no, wait a minute. We also do go-to-market strategy. We also do business planning. We also do customer interviews. And again, the speaker was befuddled. He's like, I had no idea that anybody, that product managers did anything other than read aloud to us from Jira.
And so I think this is a very strong foundational tenet of why product management is hard, right? So many people look at it, don't understand the role, they think it's something else, see it from their lens. And you, Steve, you tell the story about the CEO who fired all the product managers because nobody knew what they did. And then 6 months later, we're like, oh shoot, they do all that stuff, and try to hire them back, and they wouldn't come back, right? But I think,
continuing that lens metaphor you had, that too is what makes this role so difficult. Is when you ask other people, what do I need to do as a product manager? They answer through their own lens. So if I went to salespeople and said, what do you need from product management? They would say, I want you to go on sales calls with me. I want you to present the roadmap, and I want you to do the demo of the next release. And if you went to marketing and said, well, what do you think product managers would do? And they're like, we need you to write some product content because we do campaigns. We don't know how to write product content. And if you go to support, they're like, we need you to, whatever. I mean, everybody's got their own lens, which is why it's so important for the head of product to actually understand the scope of what product management's contribution is. Otherwise, the poor product manager who has had no training and has no leadership is in this position of, well, I guess I'll just be helpful to everybody. And to wrap that up with Grant's story, 6 months later or a year later, the president goes, we don't really know what the product managers do. They seem to be the glue or something, but we're having hard times. Let's lose the product management department.
I like to use the word fulcrum or pulley, right? Because what we do is we allow the rest of the organization to carry a much higher weight. We are the leverage point for them. We with the focus we provide, we do that, but that's hard as well. And all this is happening, and it's not like people are like just saying, this is the lens I want. This is what I want from product management. Many of these departments are actively saying we don't need product management. I've seen many product development people and UX people are like, what is product? Can't we just get rid of product management? Can't we just let development and design do product management? And, I think all of this leads into some of the issue, but part of it's, to May's point, what is is it a profession? Maybe that's the hardest thing about it, is it's not viewed as a profession where there's common knowledge. The first blog I put on the Product Growth Leaders website was the practice of product management. Peter Drucker, when he wrote The Practice of Management back in 1957, I had to do a Peter Drucker reference, basically said, we need to make management a practice. And so let's do that. I think part of what we're trying to do, and everybody here has been a great contributor to that, is help define what this practice is we're going. Joy, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I went to you early, and then we all talked a ton, and now I'd love to get your take.
Well, I feel like we've been talking about so many things. Like, we started out with May's comment, which I liked.
Yeah.
Because I feel like what May was talking about was the career path, not just like the difference between product owner and product manager. I have a whole rant on that myself, but she said, then you become a people manager, and then you're managing people and you're not doing product management. And then you become a product leader. And maybe then you're actually looking at big picture for the whole company. And I find that a difficult part of product management as well, depending on the size of the company you're at. You could be a product manager reporting to the CEO, or you're a product manager and you're 5 levels away from the CEO. And that's, I think, a big deal. I think that's what she was getting at.
And
Yeah.
on top of that, I agree. On top of that, I also see way too often people who have titles of senior product manager who have never before been product managers, but their salary requirements required them to go into the HR band that was associated with senior product manager. But I mean, it was just so shocking the other day when somebody said, I'm a senior product manager. I've been in product management for 3 months now.
Well, so some of it's what
Good
background
work
of
if
the
you can
company.
get it.
Yeah.
My first product management title, Steve, was director of product management. But I had been doing strategy and market research, so I was doing a lot of product management activities, and even understanding the problem. Yeah, as a director of marketing at the company, I was the one going out and talking to people. I was doing the marketing the way you and I learned, right? The strategic
Right.
way. So I was doing it. I just didn't have the title. But I get your point. So Nils Davis said the hardest thing is there's no right answer. Everything we do is an educated guess, and finding out if you're right takes a long time, and others take credit for it. And I thought that was we talk about, we don't know if our decisions were good. It's not something you can judge in the quarter. It's a year, it's 2 years. That's another hard thing, as I looked at it. So some really good answers. That's one of the best, I think we had, dozens of answers, some of the most we've had in the space. On Wednesday, we put the poll in the community, and the poll question was, what is the leading cause of product management being hard? And the options were lack of clarity into the role of product management, sort of echoing what Joy said in the beginning on this call, cultural and leadership issues, product management becoming too technical and tactical, product managers not communicating well with stakeholders, or other it depends. And Steve, before we get into the answers, last week we had a thing where nobody put other it depends. This week, 2 people, but that nobody commented because I forgot to put, sharing comments. So I normally have some notes in here, but I forgot to put the sharing comments. I was doing it on Wednesday morning at 8:55, I think. Steve, how did you vote?
Well, clearly I would vote for roles. I mean, I keep coming back to that again and again. And it feels to me as if the other 3 answers are evidence of the lack of clarity in roles.
I could see that. Well,
but as a very strong second choice, I think that the lack of clarity in roles is also very strongly reflected in cultural and leadership issues.
Yeah, which was the 2 that had the most votes. 45% for lack of clarity in the roles, 35% for cultural leadership issues. Did you vote, or are we adding to that tally for clarity of roles?
I did not vote.
Okay, so we're adding that tally.
Yeah.
Calvin, how did you vote?
I voted lack of clarity.
Okay. Any comments or?
I don't know that I can add to anything that hasn't already been said, and I think that each of us, I mean, even the conversation earlier, where like wrestling with what it's, what the product management role looks like. So, yeah. If
we can't agree on those things, how can we expect other people, right?
I mean, exactly. I mean, it's just the role is different in every organization. People's entry points are at different. We come from different entry points. So,
this is why a bunch of us got together a few years ago to create the Quartz Open Framework as a scoping mechanism of what is the scope of product management. And in my first job as a product manager, I did all 6 of them. It was finding new problems to solve, getting commitment from leadership to pursue those problems, describing those to development, supporting the creation, preparing to deliver to market, getting feedback as we connect with the market, and continuous learning. All of that stuff I did as one person. And then as I got into larger organizations, we trifurcated, if that's a word. We start.
If bifurcated is a word, which means you split it into 2, Trifurcated would have to be a word that
Seems
means you're
like-
split into three.
Seems like it should, but anyway, then in larger organizations, I see people being pulled more into the strategy area, more in the technical area, more into the go-to-market area.
Yeah. No, I see that as well. Jason, how'd you vote?
So I knee-jerked and I voted for product management becoming too technical and tactical. But based on our conversation earlier, I would say I have to switch to cultural and leadership issues. And a little bit of that is between that and the lack of clarity can be chicken and egg. You know, if you have leadership problems when it comes to lack of clarity of any role within the organization, and you have cultural issues where you can't kind of correct that behavior, then you may have a lack of clarity in product management. So, but going back to learning how to say no and those kind of things, I would say that the cultural and leadership issues, I would switch my vote to that.
And actually, when we had that conversation about that, I could easily see switching to cultural and leadership issues because, to your point, it is a chicken and an egg, right? Which came first? Joy, did you vote?
I did vote, and I voted for clarity of roles.
Okay. Any comments?
Mm-mm.
Or has all been said?
It's all been said.
All right. Cory, how about you?
Product management is a seed that needs good soil.
So you voted for cultural and leadership.
I absolutely did.
I like that. Can we steal that quote?
You may. I adapted it from one I just found, which is beautiful things don't grow in bad soil.
Okay.
I feel like there's a biblical reference in there somewhere too.
There probably is, but I didn't find that first. I found
Seeds
this one
and
first.
soil. Yeah, there probably is a biblical reference in that. All right. So it seems like it's clearly those top two: lack of clarity in the role of product management, cultural and leadership issues. One could be causing the other, and each of them could cause each other. And so I think, it's interesting how often when we talk about different things, it all comes back to almost those two things, right? The culture leadership issue and the clarity of the role. Across like almost every topic we talk about, somehow something always comes back to that. So I think maybe there's something to that. Our first question, as product leaders, how can we make it easier for our teams, right? Everybody acknowledge that product management is hard. I don't know if anybody said it. One word I've heard people talk about before is the ambiguity of the role makes it hard. As product leaders, how can we make it easier for our teams? I'd love to get your thoughts on that, Jason. Besides teaching them how to say no. We already had that.
No. I was going to say, I mean, as product leaders, I think we have to be advocates for our teams, and it's our job to do the education internally to those stakeholders that we mentioned earlier, sales, marketing, executives, to let them know, how these things work and how we're going to communicate and how we're going to deliver to kind of, set the path for their teams to make it easier to make those decisions and communications to everybody else. And be the person, like, if you have questions about how we're doing our job, come to me, the product leader. Don't give heat to the people that are trying to do their job on the ground here.
I love that. Calvin, what do you think? Besides the thumbs up you just put in the chat. You're on
mute.
I think it's always going to come down to communication. Clarifying, areas, roles and responsibilities, strategies and tactics, just communication, I think.
In alignment, I think would go with communication.
And alignment, yeah.
I agree. I like that. Cory, what are you thinking?
Lots of things. What is easy to name? But two specific things that I keep coming back to. One is tell better stories. If the team is invested, if they understand why we're doing something, I think that it understands it in a way that they can get and tell others. I think that's incredibly powerful. And the second thing is, please, for the love of God, reduce your batch size or your work in progress.
I like that. I mean, that I hadn't been thinking at that level of, but that, in sort of the Phoenix Project concept, right?
Imagine coming to a team and saying, team, here's the 20 things we need to get done today
Yeah.
versus here's the most important thing to get done this week.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Joy, what are you thinking?
I ditto Jason. Be an advocate for your team, which all leaders should really do.
Yeah.
But so still need to point that out. And also educate your entire company on what product management is and what your product managers do and what they don't do.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Steve?
Well, I think certainly I agree with all that's been said, but I think, the product leader role is bridging the number one and number two things from the poll. It's giving clarity of the role to your people so that they can say, oh, you mean I'm not supposed to be doing some of these things that people are asking me to do? And then the second part is, as Joy just said, is socializing that role above and on all sides. So I would hope that a product leader would indeed be the advocate for the team. But I think there's also this responsibility of being a mentor to your team and making sure they understand the scope of the role.
I completely agree. Where my head was going when I first wrote this question was about providing air cover, right? At some point, you need to provide air cover to your team to let them do their jobs, keep them out of the muck. But, to pile on everything else, you need to make sure they're not working on too much, right? So make sure they're focused on the right things. You need to make sure that you're helping them with communication and alignment so they know what they're doing and they can make decisions, right? It's the old pattern, right? Don't tell them what to do. Tell them, or tell them what the outcome is and let them figure out how to do it and enable them with tools. You have to also be a coach to them. You be a coach and mentor and help them, because what I found in my experience as a product leader is each product manager had different things that were hard for them, right?
Sure.
So part of
People
the
are
job
people.
people are people. And so part of the job was to make sure you're doing that coaching and mentoring to help them either deal with or accommodate the things they struggle with or build muscle and overcome it. But for me, the biggest, if I look back in my success in doing that was I always set a clear vision and mission and strategy and communicated and aligned it. And then I was also providing air cover. I didn't let, I was protecting them from getting, drug into stuff. I cleared that type of stuff. I had a senior executive who wanted weekly reports on everything they were doing. I'm like, so you're asking them to spend half a day just reporting what they were doing, right? That's a half a day of time they could be spending doing something else. So.
And Grant, I think you keyed in on one thing, which is the art of decision making. And I think everybody gets hired at their level in a professional organization to make decisions. Yeah. And I think we have to enable those, the people that work with us to make those decisions. And we have to support them. And as long as we ask the questions and they, if they're coming at a decision point and you ask the questions and then and they answer the questions and it's still their decision to make. And I've always supported them, even though I might not 100% make the same decision. I would support their decision, and let's make that decision right. And yeah. So, and if it failed and it wasn't a major thing, then they will learn, because you learn more from failure than success. And then they ought to be able to grow as, confident decision makers and understanding what how to do that, versus everything having to go run up to the chief product officer or the head of product for every single decision. I think you have to enable those behaviors within your organization.
I completely agree. And I'm going to sort of challenge a little. We were having a conversation earlier this week where we challenged the concept of fail fast. It's like learn fast, right? So I fail just is such a negative connotation, and they can learn from it. And for me, to your point, when I had product managers who were failing or struggling and having issues, the bad thing for a leader to do is to go in and do it for them. And and when I was a young leader, I a couple times did that, but then I realized that was not me. I can't catch all the balls, right? So almost like how do you make it harder for them is you step in and do it for them when they can. It's like my family hates it when I try to take over the mouse when they're doing something, right? Let me do it. No, let them do it. So I think any other thoughts on how we can make it easier for our teams?
Well, something you said earlier struck me, and that is, it seems to me that the job of the VP is to coach his people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think many VPs are so busy being the senior product manager that they don't have time to coach their people. And so that leads them to the purple squirrel. I'm trying to find somebody who could be, who could do all this work without any mentoring from me. And they're really hard to find. And in many cases, we say, well, you know what, we've got a really good person over in support. Let's move them into a product management role, and then I'll mentor them when I get the spare time. But if they're doing a full-time job of being the company's product manager, they never have the time. And certainly I encountered that in my first executive role. It seemed like all I did was go to meetings where the decisions needed to be made, right? And there was one in particular that struck me. I went to a meeting where one of my product managers was in the meeting, and I turned to the meeting leader and said, which one of us is leaving?
Yeah.
And I obviously have told this story before because just Jason's nodding and smiling in all the right places. But it was like, we need you because you're the decision maker. And I'm like, no. My product manager is the decision maker. And they're like, oh, that's a different thing, because the culture in the company was only VPs could make decisions, which is just ridiculous.
My view is the more atomic we can make things, right? Push the decisions to the edge, the better, and that comes from the culture, communication, alignment, and something you said made me think about. We were talking about all the lenses, right? Marketing's lens, and sales' lens, and development's lens, and design's lens, and the business leaders and finances lens. One of the hard things is the fact that all of those people want to have meetings with product management. And so product management gets it, and it's not just in development meetings, they're in marketing meetings and sales meetings, and maybe there is a way to pull people out. Maybe the trifurcation of the role helps with that, because the product marketing person meets with the marketing and sales people, and the technical product manager or product planning manager meets with the technical and design people, and the product strategy person meets with the business people. Maybe that's part of how we make it easier, is that trifurcation of what we could do. I decided, and I don't know what we're going to get, if we talked about what the hardest thing is about product management.
Before you go there, I have to say, I have just looked it up, and trifurcate is in fact a word that means what we said it means, to divide into 3 branches.
All my preparation for spelling bees, which I didn't have any, tells me that the root of furcate with the of try would be a word.
Still, yeah, I'm just delighted to know that it is actually a word, and that we used it correctly.
I'm going to turn the question off for now, because I remember the first time I heard the use bifurcate used. It was in GE, and we're going to bifurcate the business. And I thought it was the coolest word. That in accretive. I thought accretive was a cool word too, because we're talking about acquisitions being accretive, meaning it pays for itself, that type of stuff. Totally non sequitur, but if Steve's going to look up trifurcate, I have to talk about how much I love the term bifurcate. And I would find a way to work it into everything. I just thought it was a great word. Now I will do that with trifurcate. So
kind of like this conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I get nation of origin?
Yeah, GE. All right. Back to the next question. What is the easiest thing about product management? If we're going to talk about what the hardest thing about product management is there an easy thing about product management, or is it all hard? Jason has nodding. He has an answer. What is the easiest thing about product management?
Getting plugged into anything you want to get plugged into.
You have access to all, because everybody wants you. If you know how to use that power, right, wisely, you can do a lot. But sometimes if you can't control that power, it's the cause of the heart.
Yeah, it's a yin yang, right?
Yeah,
Two-sided.
I was afraid we weren't going to have any things that were easy. Calvin, what do you think's easy about product management?
I'm still thinking. Honestly, I'm still. This is like the hardest. This is the hardest.
The hardest thing about product management is about thinking about what is easy about product management. All right, we'll move on. Joy, is there anything easy in your mind?
I was going to say nothing, but not to jump on Jason's bandwagon again. Depending on the company that you're at, I have found that I can say, well, as the product manager, I'm interested in the onboarding process with our customers because I'd really like to see. Well, as the product manager, I'd really like to be able to talk to, and that has gotten me into a lot of places that, you know, it's good reason to want to talk to whomever I want to talk to. Well, I want to talk to customer success. Well, I want to talk to implementation. I want to talk to onboarding. Okay.
And not just internally, right? I always told the sales, people, customer support, sales, whoever's customer success, reaching out to customers I want to talk to, tell them that I'm from product management. I'm working on the roadmap and we want to get their input. And just saying as the product manager, that sort of, it can open up doors to go. I love that as a product manager. Cory.
The easiest thing is hearing about what's wrong with the product. Because everybody and their mother will tell you what's wrong with your product. Or what your product needs, or it would be really cool if.
Easy to get that feedback, hard to emotionally deal with.
Oh, God, what's the right word? It should be harder to get that feedback. Let me put it that way. It's too easy to tell us what's wrong with the product.
Yes, I like that a lot. Steve.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with everybody and say the title opens a lot of doors. I mean, Joy's right. You can call a client out of the blue and say, "Hi, I'm the product manager," and the conversation will go forward. I found that when I was reaching out to do win-loss analysis, for instance, I would say, "Hi, I'm the product manager. I'm not the sales guy. I'm calling you to figure out what we did right and wrong in selling product to you." And I cannot think of a time that someone has said, "Oh, I don't have time to talk to you." And having come from a sales background, I've had a lot of doors slammed in my face, but never as a product manager.
I like that. And where I was originally thinking was sort of that way. I'm going to sort of spin it a little. And easiest thing for me was going on the boondoggles, going to the conferences, because I had a way of getting speaking invites to conferences as the product manager, and somebody would pay for my trip, which made it easy because I didn't have to worry about budget. And then I got to go talk to a whole bunch of customers. And for me, the easiest way to talk to customers was, and I've told this story before, I would set up 3 dinners. I would have sort of a 4:30, hors d'oeuvres, light, tapas or whatever, small plates. I would have like a 6:30 and I'd have an 8:30, and I could have dinner with 3 different customers, every night. And it was a great way. That was easy. I also liked doing it. The other easy thing I was thinking about is it's easy talking with other product managers about product management. I love talking to other product managers about product management. It's easy to do. I do it every week, right? Calvin, has anything popped in, or you're just going to ditto it all?
I'm going to ditto Joy and Steve.
Not at all. Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, only because those really resonated. Not that Cory and Jason didn't, or you didn't. It's just that, for what.
Yeah, we get it. We get it, Calvin. We understand. I'll remember this next call when I'm just choosing who to call on and who to put on the spot. Well, let's be honest. It's easy to ditto Steve, right? He is the pioneer. At least many of us on this call learned from him. I continue to learn from him all the time. And so I can totally get on it. And Joy is like always the perfect, concise answer. So I'm okay. I can deal with it. I'm not going to be upset. You'll have to deal with Jason and Cory separately.
Okay. Fair enough. as Jason's cracking his knuckles. Great.
Yeah, and so we're going to go to the lightning round, which we've got a little time, so we can make it a thunderstorm round if we want to. What's your advice to a new product manager when product management is hard, right? New product manager comes on and they're, oh my God, this is so hard. They're dealing with it. What's your advice to the person? Jason.
Oh my gosh.
I went to you because I was sure it was
Oh.
gonna say no.
Yeah,
I'm
no.
just going to reiterate what you said, Jason. So I'm waiting to hear.
Okay. So this happens when I was a developer too, is, I always say, take a walk. You got to
Take a walk.
Yeah, you got to get
Step
away
away from it.
from the details of everything, and everybody, usually it's hard because they have to say no, and everybody wants something, you can't deliver it, or there's problems with releases or something like that. You just got to get out of that headspace, go to a higher, not the higher consciousness, but you got to get a little bit above where you're at, and you just got to get away from it. And you have to step away, like we do in development. If you have a problem that's bogging you down, you step away and you'll get clarity. And so that has been my initial feedback when somebody's been really bogged down with some challenges in product management.
I love it. Joy, since you're just gonna.
Yes, and I guess compartmentalize.
Yep.
Keep things separate, your life and work and different parts of work. That helps.
Awesome. I love that. Calvin.
My first thought was, welcome to the club.
Actually, that's close to what my answer was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, and I thought, well, what I usually do is either I'd phone a friend or I'd find a book to get, greater clarity, greater understanding of how someone else dealt with it, or what are the challenges. Reach out to a colleague to get more information or a different viewpoint.
Yeah, I love that different viewpoint. You did like 3 or 4 answers in there. Awesome.
It's to make up for the last one, I think.
That's okay. Cory.
So I'm going to channel Joy here. I'm going to say, simplify.
Oh,
Simplify it.
I love that. Steve.
I guess I would recommend that product managers embrace ambiguity.
Okay.
But furthermore, I want to agree with Calvin's statement of call a friend. I remember so many times sitting around a conference table at a product management training of some kind, and people would say, I thought my company was screwed up until I talked to that guy.
Yeah.
And, we're not nearly as bad as they are. So call a friend is a good thing. And then somebody would generally say something like, well, yeah, I'm learning the grass is brown everywhere, which is another interesting one. But I think in the end, product management is not a hard binary kind of world. And I think people who expect a pure 100% answer will struggle in product management.
I completely agree. Cory,
I'm confused with Steve. I'm confused with Steve. Are you saying that you should call a friend for support or call a friend and gloat?
Both of those would work. Indeed.
We're not as bad as you.
Yeah, totally.
All right. And I'm going to ditto Joy, Jason, Cory, and Steve. I'm looking at you, Calvin.
I know you are.
Well, no, Jason had call a friend. That was a good one too.
No, I'm joking with Calvin on that one. Actually, Calvin sort of started with where I was going to go. I was going to show them compassion and empathy, right? Let them know you've been there. All of us have been there, and talk with them. Just talk through it, right? And this is a place back to the coaching and mentor. Be a coach or mentor, and too often people become managers and leaders and don't know how to be a mentor or coach because they never were. They were a great individual contributor. And it doesn't matter the function, product management, sales, whatever. And, for companies, I think that's a great skill to invest in, helping your leaders be better at compassion and empathy and helping people talk through stuff. So it's sort of an echoing of of Calvin, and I was just joking when I said I wasn't going to. But I loved all of them. Embrace ambiguity, simplify, call a friend, compartmentalize, take a walk. Actually, that was what my first thought was: take a step back, right? Realize it's not the end of the world. This is your job. And now I won't say you should get severed and have an out life and an any life if anybody's watching Severance.
Oh,
but
yeah.
you know, you need to be able to leave stuff at work and, you know, and you know, and compartmentalize, right? So I love it. Great conversation today, as always, on the hard things of product management. We do this every week, and I didn't hit my fast forward. I was trying to be cool and go to this and pull it back up when it was off. We do this every week. On Monday, we put a question in the community. On Wednesday, we put the poll on Fridays. We had these amazing calls, and like today, like every week, I learned and I enjoyed the conversation with some amazing people. Cory, Jason, Joy, Calvin, my partner Steve, thank you so much. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll see you next week in the community. I'm going to get it right one of these days. Take care.